Good morning and welcome to the Morning Scoop for Tuesday, October 5th. This is your daily Buckeye fix. I'm Tom Orr. The Maryland game is in 4 days, the game against Michigan in 53 days. We will officially turn the page to the Maryland game a little later on today as we go talk to Ryan Day and the Buckeyes for our first midweek interviews. But before we do that, there's still a few things to discuss from the Rutgers game. It was the first time the Buckeyes looked like the Buckeyes, I guess, this season against a half-decent team. But how much can you really read into that? Buckeye Scoop's Bill Greene just wrote about that in one of his weekly bank blog columns. He's my guest this morning. Bill, thank you for joining me.
Hey, glad to be here, Tom.
So one of the big takeaways for a lot of people was that they have an answer at quarterback now. I mean, there was sort of an open question earlier in the month. It seems like now, okay, you've seen all three quarterbacks, and now it feels like everyone's sort of, okay, Ryan Day knows what he's doing. How about that? Yeah, it does seem like that answer is the same answer we've been sort of expecting for more than a year now. Like Stroud is like clearly the guy here, right?
Oh, I sure think so. And I thought so all along. I mean, anyone that thought the kid was just going to step in there without ever having thrown a pass before in a college game and be Justin Fields, that was unrealistic. I mean, I still think there are, bumps in the road coming for CJ Stroud. He's still a baby in terms of, being a polished college quarterback. You look at, I don't know who you want to pull up. You could look at Spencer Rattler. Spencer Rattler's played a ton of games already at Oklahoma, still going through some ups and downs. Brock Purdy, ups and downs. This is normal. I mean, it's just, I think people got spoiled with Justin Fields, and they also forgot that even at the end of Justin Fields' career, not very good against Northwestern, not very good against Alabama. So it wasn't like he was, Peyton Manning every week either. I think CJ Stroud is right where he should be. I think he's progressing really well. I like everything about the kid, but he's going to be better after 12 games than he is after 3 games, So I think he needs, a little bit more, cut him a little rope here, a little slack here. And I would say the same thing if it was Kyle McCord in there or Jack Miller. These guys are brand new. And, I think cut him some slack.
Yeah, it's easy to forget. I mean, we've been talking about CJ Stroud for so long. It's easy to forget that he literally is 3 starts into his career at this point.
Right.
So yeah, it is a long way to go for him still. This was the first look at the skill talent when the offense was really clicking on Saturday. It seems like when they're on, that no one's gonna be able to stop them in this league. I mean, who in this league, if the offense is firing on all cylinders like it was at times on Saturday, who in the Big Ten can stop them?
Well, I mean, there are some really good defensive teams in this league. I think the offenses are very challenged. The quarterbacks are not good in the Big Ten, but boy, those guys can play D. And if you get into, a low scoring, slug it out game with Penn State, which I think is going to happen, or Michigan, who I think is really good defensively, and then if you advance to the Big Ten title game and you happen to play Iowa, I mean, we'll see. You know what I mean? I just don't think, that Akron or Rutgers, I don't think it's a good, those guys offer no resistance. I mean, to like what you're going to get from Penn State or Michigan. Now, I do think the Ohio State, the offensive talent there is pretty amazing. And that's why I wrote the other day that I think CJ Stroud is really the key to this team. If you're going to pick out one guy, he would be the guy for me. If CJ's on, then the offense is going to be on the way you posed the question. If CJ is not playing well, then this team's beatable. So, we'll see going forward. Every week's going to be a new week. So, like I say, I think there's a lot to like with this team, but I think there's a lot of unknown with this team. And I'm not one that thinks the defense is fixed either, just because you had some good weeks against Akron and Rutgers. We'll see. We'll see. Every week's a new week. The goal, once you've got that first loss, you just cannot get a second loss, no matter what. So if you got to win 9-7, or if you got to win 41-40, you have to win. And so ideally the goal is win every week, get better every week, be playing your best football, at the end of the year.
Well, I was about to ask about the defense, and it sounds like you sort of answered my first question, which was, I mean, it looks different than it did a month ago, but, they fixed holes with coaching and scheme and personnel and all that stuff, but it sounds like you don't read a ton into shutting teams like Akron and Rutgers down. So When do you think we really find out what this defense is? Like, when do they really get tested, then really kind of thrown into the fire?
Yeah, I think it's a season-long process. This week, I think, I like the Maryland receivers. I like Tagovailoa. I know they got murdered last week by Iowa, turned the ball over 6-7 times. You have no chance at that point. So we'll see. I think this week will test them a little bit. And, I think it's a week-by-week process. I don't think you make, all these big season-long judgments after 3 games, 4 games, 5 games. Last year at this time, Alabama wasn't looked at, the way we looked at them the night after they dismantled Ohio State. So it's a process. You just got to get better as you go along. And I think the mistake people make is, they saw Alabama week 1 just destroy Miami, and it's like, give them the trophy. They're not, they can't be beat. And then they struggled a little bit with Florida, and it's like, oh, they're not that good as we thought. And then they murder Ole Miss, and now we're giving them the trophy again. It doesn't work that way. It's a process. You've got 12 games to get to where you need to be. So that's why I think people can make too many rash judgments based off 1 game or 2 games. It's a process. It's a long season. 12 games is a lot. So, like I say, we'll see. I think they're going to get tested this week, and I think it's going to tell us a lot more than what we learned from the Akron and Rutgers game.
So in that process, in that 12-game season, or the 5 games so far, what area have you seen the biggest improvement from the defense? Like where has that defense improved the most so far in your mind?
Well, I think the pass rush has picked up a little bit. Non-existent against Oregon. It just wasn't what we thought it was going to be, because that was the one area of this team that I thought was a given. I thought Tyreek Smith, Haskell Garrett, Taron Vincent, Zach Harrison, Gage, Jackson, then you sprinkle in Sawyer. Well, I thought that group would just be lights out because of their experience and because we've seen them do it before. We've seen those guys be pretty good players last year. Well, they were getting run on a little bit, and they were not providing a pass rush. Now it seems like that's starting to come around, and they're going to need that. The DBs, I have been really pleasantly surprised with the DBs. Denzel Burke I never would have believed what I'm seeing, and he gets better every week. So the coverage has been better than I thought it would be. I still think they've got some issues in the back end, the safety position, but the coverage on the corners has been pretty good. Cam Brown, if he can get healthy, Cam Brown and Burke were pretty special. And then Banks doesn't have to move up and be your number 1 guy. He's functional. Cam Martinez can play. The linebackers are just, man, they're all over the board. I don't know what the answer is there. We knew they were inexperienced. They've got young guys that haven't played much, and they've got those older guys that really haven't played much. And, Gant and Pope are now gone. So I don't know what to expect from that group from week to week, to be honest with you. It's a crapshoot there. And, they're doing the best they can. They've played everybody. If you have a pulse and you're a linebacker, you've been on the field this year, So we'll see what happens there. Pass rush getting better is huge for this team. So I would point that out as something that I think has gotten better.
In addition to this year's team, you also write a weekly piece about the college football playoff. Top 2 teams seem right now like they're pretty clear, Georgia and Alabama.
Yeah.
And obviously, as you said, a lot can change between now and December. This is not in Sharpie, as you say, not in permanent marker, but you have 8 other teams listed as alive and well for the playoff. That includes 5 Big Ten teams: Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Iowa. So those are all likely win and they're in, or win and you're in pretty good shape to be in. Which of those 5 Big Ten teams do you see as the most likely to be able to do that, to win out and potentially make the college football playoff?
Yeah, I think it's Ohio State, only because I think they have the most talent of any team in the league. And I don't think anyone would argue that. I don't think, if you look at any national analysts or recruiting analysts or whatever, I don't think anybody would fight you on that point. So that's usually where I start. I'm a sucker for talent, and they have the most talent. So I put Ohio State with the best bet. The one thing with Ohio State right now is they have no safety net because they do have the one loss. to Oregon. So, it's a little more precarious than what, some of the other schools are. I do feel that the winner of the Big Ten title game is going to be in the playoffs as long as they only have one loss or 0 losses. So Ohio State with that Oregon loss, they're in a little tougher spot here. But I think, if you ask me what team is going to get there, and I think Las Vegas would agree with me, it would be Ohio State.
Another team from the state of Ohio that seems like they're in pretty decent shape right now to make the college football playoff is Cincinnati. Before the season, it was like, well, let's see if they can beat Indiana and let's see if they can beat Notre Dame. Well, got a good win at Notre Dame after a good win over Indiana. To you, are they winning they're in right now? I mean, I have so much trouble believing the college football playoff. Like, it feels like they should be, but I kind of need to see the committee actually do it before I'll really believe it.
Well, I think there's going to be a hue and cry to put them in if they're undefeated. I mean, the nice thing is we've had more upsets. I think I read somewhere we've had more upsets at this point of the season than we've had in the last 10 years. So if that trend continues, you're not going to see that many undefeated teams. A couple of years ago, we had Clemson, Ohio State, Bama, all undefeated. Getting 3 undefeated teams wasn't that hard to do. Well, I don't think it's going to happen this year. And the nice thing is Bama and Georgia are going to play each other, so one of them is going to lose there. So, I think an undefeated UC with, wins against Indiana, a road win at Notre Dame where they don't lose too often under the Golden Dome. And that wasn't just a win, Tom. That was a convincing butt kicking. They dominated that game from start to finish. They were clearly the best team. That was no fluke. So I think, yes, I think undefeated UC, I think there's going to be a hue and cry to put them in this year. And I think they deserve it. If they can run that table with the wins they've got, I think they're going to get in.
Yeah, I'm going to be real interested to hear the playoff committee, those conference calls later this fall when they're talking about, why and, has Cincinnati won by enough and their schedule is not quite as strong. And do they have to win by 50 points every week? Like that's going to be real interesting because we haven't had those conversations in any real depth so far. It seems like this is as close as anyone has really gotten.
Right.
In addition to the alive and well category that we just talked about, your next level down in your playoff kind of, not rankings, but kind of clusters, I guess, is hanging by a thread. So that's teams like, I'm going to list, you had 12 of them. I'm going to list them for you. Oregon, Texas, Auburn, Arizona State, Virginia Tech, Coastal Carolina, Notre Dame, Boston College, Oklahoma State, Kentucky, North Carolina State, and BYU. So hanging by a thread is basically everything has to go kind of just right to make it in. Which of those 12 teams do you think is the most likely to have all the stuff fall right and potentially make it?
I would say maybe Oregon, but I don't think they're all that good. And I think they got exposed last week against Stanford for a lot of their weaknesses that, I think Ohio State would love to play them again. They'd love to have that do-over, but you don't get that in college football. But Oregon winning out, I think there would be a lot of nice wins on that schedule if they can do it. And I don't really think they can. Auburn is really interesting to me because Auburn is so well coached. Brian Harsin is a great coach. Okay. I thought he might be a fish out of water, headed to the deep South, but he's not. I mean, the coaching is excellent there. And if they run the table, which I don't think is feasible, I don't think it can happen. But if they do run the table, they're in, automatically in. They would only have a loss to Penn State on the road, a close loss. So, that would be a school that if they could somehow navigate that schedule and win out, they are in without question.
All right, and before I let you go, I do want to let you plug something you just did with Mark Givler and Kevin Noon and Mick Walker and our whole team of recruiting insiders. You did a recruiting roundtable podcast. It's on the Gives in the Bank feed, so you can find that. Just search Buckeye Scoop or search Gives in the Bank, GIVS and the Bank. Wherever you get in the morning scoop, you can just search those there, find that show. Bill, let people know about that show, what you guys put together and in what you guys talked about.
Yeah, we've all done like individual podcasts with one or another, but this time we thought we're going to get the whole team together. Kevin Noon kind of was our MC on that, did a great job. And we just broke down, the whole 2022 recruiting class and where we think they're headed. and all five of us were throwing in, our opinions, what we were hearing from our sources. And I thought it was highly entertaining. I really enjoyed it myself. We also threw in some 2023 stuff, and to get, five people going back and forth, bouncing off each other, I loved it. I think we need to do it more often, maybe weekly or bi-weekly. And I hope people will check it out. And if you liked it, let us know. If you didn't like it, let us know what you didn't like, what we could tweak it and make it better. But I was really, really happy with how it came out.
I have not had a chance to listen to that. I have that saved on my phone. I was looking at it and I was like, I got to go take the dog for an extra long walk tomorrow morning or something and get a chance to listen to that. So, Bill, I do appreciate you taking time to answer some questions about this year's Buckeyes, this year's playoffs. And then if you want to hear people talk about future Buckeyes, you can get that on the Gives in the Bank feed. So, Bill, thank you for joining me today.
All right, Tom. Thank you.
And we don't forget to check out BuckeyeScoop.com for that. And also you can check out BuckeyeScoop.com a little later on today. We'll have complete coverage of the press conference with Ryan Day, several of the Buckeyes. That'll be coming up around lunchtime today. You can watch that live on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/BuckeyeScoop. If you're watching this on YouTube, just hit the bell. That'll subscribe you to our channel. And that way you will get notified as soon as we go live with that. So you won't miss it. You won't have to sit there refreshing the page, checking your phone. You'll get notified as soon as we go live. It's that way you can watch Ryan Day and several Buckeye players talk about the Rutgers game and look ahead to the Maryland game today as well. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.